I used to think love could conquer anything. I was wrong. Hi, I'm Emily. And marrying Mark Turner felt like walking straight into another world. The Turner family didn't just live differently. They existed on a level most people only read about. Wealth, prestige, old money. The kind of influence that bends the rules of life itself. Their home wasn't just a house, it was an empire, a living monument to everything I was not. The first time I stepped through those enormous wrought iron gates and up the marble steps of the Turner estate, I remember thinking I'd entered a fairy tale. Beautiful, glittering, and dangerous. Every inch of that place gleamed with perfection. The gardens looked as though they'd been painted into place, not planted. The hallways stretched endlessly, filled with gold-framed portraits of ancestors who seemed to stare down at me, judging if I was worthy of their name. It was breathtaking, and if I'm honest, a little terrifying. I told myself that love would be enough to bridge the gap between their world and mine. I believed that Mark's warmth, his easy smile, his promise that I'd fit right in would make it all okay. But the Turners had rules. Silent, invisible ones. And I was the only person who didn't know how to play their game. David Turner, Mark's older brother, led that game with an effortless cruelty. He didn't have to shout or insult to make you feel small. He just looked at you in a way that said you'd never quite belong. "So, Emily," he'd ask during dinner, that slick grin on his face. "This must be quite the change from where you grew up, huh?" His tone dripped with false politeness, the kind that sounds like a compliment but stings like a slap. I'd smile back, pretending not to notice. "Every day's an adventure, David," I'd say lightly. "I'm just trying to keep up." Then there were the dinners, long, quiet, and heavy. Every conversation felt like a test I hadn't studied for. Mrs. Turner, with her perfect posture and diamond brooches, always found a way to remind me of where I came from. "It's so brave of you, Emily," she'd say, her sharp eyes glinting, "to step into our world. Not everyone can adjust to this kind of refinement." I would smile and nod, even as my stomach twisted. I wanted so badly to prove I belonged, to show them that I wasn't just some poor girl who'd snagged their golden son. I loved Mark with every part of me, and that had to count for something. Then, I found out I was pregnant. For the first time since joining the Turner world, I felt genuine hope. Maybe this baby would be the bridge that connected me to them, something pure that could soften the edges of their judgment. When I told Mark, his face lit up brighter than I'd ever seen it. "We're going to have a baby, Em. You're going to be an incredible mom." I held on to that joy, that naive dream that new life could bring new beginnings. But life doesn't follow your plans. Instead of bringing us closer, the news of my pregnancy deepened every crack in the Turner family. The Turners were obsessed with legacy and inheritance, and my baby, our baby, changed the balance they'd built their entire lives around. David's comments became sharper, his smile thinner. "A baby, huh?" he'd said one evening. "Guess Dad will have to rethink the will now. Congratulations, Emily." The words sounded like poison. Mrs. Turner's disapproval grew colder by the day. What should have been joy turned into a silent war. I began to feel watched. Constantly, painfully watched. Living under that roof felt like living inside a cage made of marble and money. And then, one night, everything shattered. Mark had been called into work late, and I was alone in the mansion with Mrs. Turner and David. The tension in the air felt like it could snap. It started over something small, a vase I'd moved to dust beneath. "You think you can just come in here and change things?" David's voice was low, dangerous. "I was just cleaning," I said softly, trying to stay calm. "Cleaning," he sneered. "Or snooping?" "We know your game, Emily. You're a gold digger trying to secure your child's future before it's even born." Mrs. Turner's voice joined his, cold, cutting. "You think bearing a Turner grandchild will make you one of us? You'll always be you, an outsider." My chest tightened. "That's not true. I love Mark. And this baby, our baby, isn't about money. It's about family." My voice trembled, but I stood my ground. David stepped closer, anger flashing in his eyes. "You don't belong here. And then it happened, too fast to process. He pushed me, I fell hard. The pain hit me before I even reached the floor. My hands flew to my stomach, panic searing through me like fire. I remember Mrs. Turner's gasp, David's pale face, and then silence. When Mark came home, I was still on the floor, shaking, bruised, crying. Through the blur of tears, I told him everything. His face went white, then red, his jaw tight with rage. "We're leaving, Emily," he said, his voice breaking. "Tonight. I don't care what they think. I won't let them hurt you again." We packed in silence, every minute heavy with grief. As we drove through the Turner gates for the last time, I felt both freedom and despair. At the hospital, my worst fear was confirmed. The baby was gone. The fall had taken what we loved most. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like my heart had stopped beating too. Mark sat beside me, holding my hand in silence. The Turners, their money, their mansion. None of it mattered anymore. All I could see was what we'd lost. When we left that hospital, it felt like stepping out of a storm. Broken, but somehow still breathing. We moved into a small apartment, a fraction of what we had, but it became our refuge. The first weeks were heavy and slow. Mark buried himself in work, while I drifted between sadness and silence. We talked less, grieved more. Every day was survival. Then came an unexpected kindness. Mr. Turner. He was nothing like the rest of them. Where his wife was icy, he was warm. Where his son David was cruel, he was gentle. He began visiting often, always arriving with flowers or stories or quiet comfort. "Emily, my dear," he'd say softly, "you're family. You always will be." His compassion became a balm for the ache that wouldn't fade. It was Mr. Turner who helped us start to believe that life could still hold beauty, that maybe, somehow, we could begin again. And then, a miracle. I found out I was pregnant again. This time, joy came mixed with fear. My hands shook as I held the test, remembering the first loss. But when I told Mark, he smiled through tears. "We'll be careful this time, Em. Nothing will happen to you or our baby." When we told Mr. Turner, his eyes filled with tears. "A new beginning," he whispered. "This child is a blessing, proof that life goes on." For a moment, hope bloomed again. But fate had one last cruelty. Just as we began to plan for our future, the call came. Mr. Turner had passed away unexpectedly. The news shattered us. He had been our anchor in the storm, and now he was gone. The mourning period that followed didn't feel like grief. It felt like a show. The rest of the family swarmed like vultures, circling his memory for scraps of inheritance. The coldness in that house seemed even sharper without him there. Mark and I attended the reading of the will with dread curling in our stomachs. The air buzzed with greedy whispers. When the lawyer finally spoke, the room went silent. "Mr. Turner has made some specific allocations in his will," he said formally, and then came the shock. Mr. Turner had left a significant portion of his estate to me, and to our unborn child. He had ensured that we would be secure, independent, free from the control of the family that despised us. David's face turned red with fury. "This can't be right!" He left money to her and her child. His voice cracked with rage. Mrs. Turner looked just as horrified. "But that's our inheritance. How could he do this?" The lawyer didn't flinch. Mr. Turner was very clear in his wishes. He wanted Emily and her child to be well taken care of. I sat there in stunned silence, tears filling my eyes, not out of greed, but gratitude. Mr. Turner had seen me. He had believed in me when no one else did. Mark reached over and took my hand, squeezing gently. His eyes met mine, filled with sadness and love, and a deep, quiet gratitude. "Dad always knew what was right," he whispered. The rest of the reading passed in a blur with David and Mrs. Turner exchanging whispered arguments and shooting. Angry glares our way, but something had shifted. Within me, I felt a newfound strength of resolve to stand up against their greed, and malice after the raiding. The backlash was immediate. "You manipulated my father," David accused, his face flushed with rage. "I did know." "Such thing," I replied, my voice steady. "Your father was a kind man. who saw what was happening in his own house, Mrs. Turner tried to interject, but Mark stepped in enough. Dad made his choice, and we will respect it. Emily and our child deserve this. As we left the lawyer office, the weight of the Turner family's animosity bore down on us, but there was also a sense of liberation. We were no longer bound to them, no longer tethered to their toxic world. That day marked a turning point for me. I was no longer the outsider trying to fit in. I was a mother, to be a woman with a newfound purpose, ready to protect my family against whatever the Turners might throw our way. The birth of my son was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. After so much pain and loss, holding him in my arms felt like a piece of heaven had been handed to me. His tiny fingers, his soft cries, they were symbols of hope, of a future finally looking bright. Mark was an incredible father. His love and support, unwavering. We named our son Ethan, a name that meant strong and enduring. It suited him, and it suited us, a family that had weathered the storm and emerged stronger. Meanwhile, the Turner family's world began to crumble. The inheritance, or the lack thereof, hit them hard. David, consumed by greed and anger, found himself embroiled in legal troubles. His shady business dealings, once overlooked due to his father's influence, were now in a spotlight. He-faced lawsuits and financial ruin. His fall from grace, a saint contrast to his former arrogance. Mrs. Turner's life took a downward spiral as well, without the financial cushion she was accustomed to. Her lavish lifestyle became unsustainable. The friends she once hosted with such grandeur began to distance themselves, leaving her in a lonely, self-made exile. As for Mark and me, we built a life filled with love and laughter, far from the toxic environment of the Turner estate. I started a small business, something I had always dreamed of but never had the courage to pursue. To my joy and surprise, it flourished. Mark found success in his career too, his integrity and hard work paying off. We were a team in every sense of the word, building a life on our terms away from the shadows of the Turner legacy. One evening, as I watched Ethan play, Mark came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "We did it. And we made it through," he said softly. I leaned back into his embrace, a smile in my voice. "We did," I replied. "And we have so much to be thankful for." Looking back, the journey was anything but easy. There were moments of despair, of heartache, but there were also moments of incredible strength, of love that refused to be diminished in the end. Justice was served not just in the downfall of the Turners, but in the life we built out of the ashes of that ordeal. We found joy not in their misery, but in our own triumph, in our ability to rise above and create something beautiful of something so broken. The story has reached its conclusion, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. But before you go, I have a question for you. In a world filled with challenges and difficult decisions, what do you believe is the true measure of victory? Is it revenge, or the ability to find peace and build a better life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's have a thoughtful discussion. And if you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more motivating stories and engaging discussions. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to see your opinions in the comments. Thanks for watching.